Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Appreciate you attending this meeting tonight. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 7 p.m. now, and this board meeting taking place on September 13th, 2022. Go ahead and go to agenda item number 1, adoption of the agenda as submitted. And this is for possible action.
Second.
First by Joe, second by Laurel. Any public comment reference this motion? Seeing none? No, just in reference this particular motion. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed,
Aye.
opposed say nay. I should mention that Trustee Ramirez is joining us, but she's via telephone line tonight. And Trustee Carini will not be here tonight. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2, which is a flag salute being led by Trustee Crossman.
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3, which is the superintendent report, and this is for information only. Superintendent Fueling.
Thank you, President Varner. First, if you don't mind, we have a presentation of a gift to the Carson City Schools Foundation this morning.
Please.
Evening, so. So I'm joined here this evening by Stacey Woodbury, who is the Manager of Public Affairs for Southwest Gas, and Brad Harris, who is the Vice President of Southwest Gas for Northern Nevada and some other places. We'll leave it at that. Yes. So, Southwest Gas has been working with Carson City Schools Foundation, and as such has made a very generous donation. And would you like to speak a little bit about that, or do you want me to?
We have enjoyed our partnership with the schools. We've had a partnership with Fremont School for a few years, working with them. And this year, we have an employee volunteer team called Blue, Building Lives Up Everywhere. And we have a company-wide initiative to support educators. And so we've been doing some stuff with Fremont. And we also wanted to take the opportunity to make a donation from the Southwest Gas Foundation to the Carson City Schools Foundation to be used for microgrants to school teachers or administrators to enhance the student experience for projects that would otherwise not be able to be funded. So we're here with our very large check and a small one you can cash, and we'd like to take a picture.
Absolutely.
Pardon?
Trustees, would you all like to come on down?
Then you don't know my kids, do you? Thank you very much.
While you're waiting, I'd just like to thank Southwest Gas for their continued partnership with the schools and their very generous donation tonight. Thank you, guys. Mr. Fueling, continue with the report, please.
Okay, thank you, President Varner. And thank you to Southwest Gas for being a community partner with the schools and now helping out the schools foundation with some of those grants. It's very much appreciated. They've been a partner with the school district for a very long time. Second announcement, we have the Community PLC first meeting of the year coming up on Wednesday, September 21st. This meeting is, as you know, over the past year, maybe a little bit longer, we've been working on revising the district's strategic plan. And we've come to a point now where much of that work has been done. Excuse me. But one of the parts of that process, oftentimes in revising one of the 5 goals, so someone who is participating may be very focused on that and participating in that one group. And so this is this community PLC will really be an opportunity for everyone partaking to have a chance to make comments on any of the other goals that they otherwise may not have had a chance to do so. Once we have that information, we'll start putting together a draft of the new strategic plan and bring that back to you in draft form to be considered. Last thing, so if you didn't notice yesterday, there was some smoke in the air, and that clearly was not a welcome visitor to the school district. As you know, we have Regulation 805, which was implemented last year, setting the airnow.gov as kind of our benchmark standard for how we look at the quality of air outside, and setting 400 as our benchmark for when we decide to, generally when we decide to call school. So just looking back at that, I think it reflects certainly a desire to have kids in school as much as possible. We know many of our kids in their home situations don't or may have much worse air quality in their homes than we have in the schools. So it puts hopefully puts them in a safer place. We also have the situation of not wanting to make up school days as much as possible. There were some districts around us that I believe had to make up 9 days of school last year because of smoke days. So that I think was another part of setting that number. Looking forward, that mosquito fire is still a concern and likely to impact us for some time. I think from what I understand, I think it's 18% contained. And most of the containment work being done on it is on the western side of that fire, northern, western, southwestern side of that fire. So there's a lot of structures they're trying to protect. The more difficult ground and where the containment has not been as active is on that eastern side, the eastern slope, or eastern side of that fire, which is going up the western slope of the Sierras. So it likely will continue to be an issue that we'll keep an eye on here for schools. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, board reports. We'll start with Carson High School. Just state your name for the record again, please.
Hi, I'm Ava Schofield, and I'll be the school board representative this year from Carson High. So the main thing going on these few weeks is this week is our homecoming week, and so we had our assembly on Friday the 9th, which was last week, and then our overarching theme is music festivals, and so Monday we had the Life is Beautiful dress-up day, neon glitter, and then for lunchtime we had the best dress contest, and then today we did Night in the Country. So it was like country, American pride, and then the lunchtime activity was bingo, and then tomorrow is Mardi Gras, and so we'll dress up in green and purple and yellow and beads, and then the candidate breakfast is at 7 to 7:30 tomorrow morning, and then the lunchtime activity is there's a musical theater flash mob, and then we have Wednesday Night Live tomorrow night here at the community center at 7. And Thursday we have Coachella dress up, so tie-dye hippie, and lunchtime is a musical Kahoot. And then Friday is our snow globe dress up day, so it's a white out. And then we have a pep rally at lunch, and then possibly a football game, smoke permitting, and we'll have crowning during halftime. And if crowning gets canceled, we'll do it during the dance on Saturday, which is from 7 to 10 in the big gym. And then we just have our fall sports going still. We have football, boys and girls tennis, girls golf, cross country, volleyball, and then girls and boys soccer. And that is everything going on at Carson High this week. So thank you very much. I'll see you guys in a few weeks.
Yeah, thank you very much. You have a lot going on. We'll go ahead and I understand we have somebody here from Pioneer tonight. Just state your name for the record and welcome.
Good evening. I am Aaliyah Baruman, a senior at Pioneer Academy. The Pioneer Open House will be held tomorrow at 5 p.m. We will be holding our first senior sunrise this Friday at 7 a.m. with breakfast and snacks provided. Congratulations to Pioneer Academy students Liam and DeAndre, who were recognized in the Nevada Appeal for their work on a youth-led virtual reality arcade. Thank you. That concludes our announcements for Pioneer.
Well, thank you, and thank you for joining us. Are you going to meet us on join us on a regular basis from now on, or?
Yes.
Thank you. We're pleased to have you. Any update from the Nevada Association of School Boards?
No, just if you plan on attending the conference, make sure you let Renee know and probably book a room if you want to stay up for the whole conference.
Thank you. If you don't mind, before we go in ours, I'll call and see if there's any association updates. Okay, announcement. I'm sorry. We'll go ahead and do the board reports, and if we don't mind, we'll start with Trustee Ramirez on the phone.
Thank you, President Warner. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I do have a report from Principal Paula Zona. Siliger is almost finished with their makeup test for math. Preparation have already begun for their upcoming pumpkin patch on October 15th. Picture day is next Thursday, the 22nd. Students may dress up and now wear their standard student attire. Their next week is their fall book fair with parent night being next Thursday, the 19th. Parents may go peruse the books from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Walker?
I have no report this evening.
Trustee Cassiopo?
No report for me tonight for Pioneer. Leah did a better job than I would have done.
Stacy?
I have an update from Empire Elementary. I went to their open house on, I think it was Friday. Really well attended, a lot of community partners. It was just exciting to see kids going with their parents and stuff. It was really nice. They had a nice turnout. They have some highlights for this week. They have the Green Biz Kids started up, a group of fifth graders working on helping our school become more sustainable. This month, in a partnership with Project Recharge and McKinstry, these students will be conducting an energy audit of the school to determine the Energy Star rating. They are also getting ready to start their Lego League challenge for 4th and 5th graders. Information will be coming home shortly. A group of 7 teachers were accepted to pilot the National STEM Certification Program in partnership with the Governor's Office of Science, Information Technology, and will participate in a year-long development process to improve their instruction in STEM. And last but not least, their school received a garden grant and is currently working on an outdoor learning and garden space. And then I'd just like to take a minute to congratulate Rachel Croft, a 4th grade teacher here in our district, who's coordinator and also a coordinator for the Northwestern Regional Professional Development Program, as she was it awarded the National Education Association Global Learning Fellowship for the state of Nevada.
Very good. Thank you, Stacy. Laurel?
For Fremont Elementary School, Dr. Ward would like to thank everyone that came out and made their fall festival a fantastic success. She'd especially like to thank the community partners and all of the families who came. And for Fritch Elementary School, Mr. Brown wants to share that this start of the school year has been awesome, and that's because of all of the awesome staff that they have at Fritch. Awesome is a word they like to use a lot at Fritch. Also, he would like to invite all Fritch parents to the information evening on Thursday, September 15th from 5 to 6:30. They're going to share information on school safety and the social emotional learning program and restorative practices. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. I have a report from Boardwalk Bray. They would hope to have lots of families join them tomorrow when they pick up their students from a minimum day. They also want to remind people that it's not too late to get tickets for Boardwalk Bray's Day at the Reno Aces, and it's coming up on this Sunday at 1 p.m. And then if see Parents Square or call the office for more information about getting tickets. They hope to see a lot of families there, and they want to remind people also that it's $1 hot dog day, so that's good. And finally, Picture Day is coming up on September 29th. Then from Carson Middle School, they want to report their staff is working very hard on making this a positive school year for students while achieving lots of academic growth. Currently, they have a team working on providing more positive behavior support to reward students for making good choices. They're also working on ways to reach out to the school community with informational meetings and get-togethers, such as Donuts with the Dean. They also have an active parent-teacher organization who are planning fun events for students and staff. And they encourage all parents and families to get involved by joining their PTO. And that concludes my report. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 6. Did I miss 5? Sorry, I tried to get it out of order. Association reports. Loretta?
Hello, good evening, President Varner, Superintendent Fueling, first time I got to say that, trustees, and Renee. Just an update, we had a elections in August meeting, and we have elected Carrie Finn, she got reelected as our president. In our advisory committee for instructional support was Bev Singleton, she got reelected. For treasurer is Lynn Garnett. In the nutrition is Sherry Carter, and in the healthcare is Wendy Bacon. Our VP still remains is Shannon Segal, and our secretary is Kelly Ferretti. That's the update on our officers, and I just want to mention that this weekend, the school districts got to go to Wild Island, and I call it my Caddyshack Day. And so we're all out there, free food, well, it's not free, but all you can eat food and everything at Wild Island was provided for all the association members. So it's a really good time for all the staff to get together, so. And I didn't get sunburned. So thank you.
That's good. Thank you. Any other association reports? Seeing none. Now we'll move on to item number 6, which is public comment. In making public comment, speakers are asked to come to the table or podium, sign in, speak into the microphone, and identify themselves for the record. People are reminded to limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes and not simply repeat comments made by others. I also wanted to remind people that any comments must be related to an issue under the jurisdiction of the board. Thank you very much. We'll move on to any public comment. Do we have any in-person public comment? Yeah, I'll say this after. And she'll be keeping time and let you know when your time's coming up.
My name is Sarah Romeo. I am a parent. My first concern, and I don't know whether I can get to number 2, but we'll start with 1. I have 3 student athletes. 2 are at the high school and the cross-country team, and then one is the middle school and also on the cross-country team. And with the bus shortages, with the bus driver shortages, they've reached out to parents a couple times. Well, one with the high school, they weren't able to take the whole team to a meet because there was not a driver available and they were going to use the vans, which still limited the number of seats. And only about half the team would have been allowed to go. And then middle school, I think there was a time where there was not a bus to get them home. And so again, the van was going to take them up, but they were reaching out to parents to make sure that students could get home. And currently, you have permission slips for parents to take athletes home, but I would like to see permission slips to bring athletes to events so that they aren't left behind when there's a competitive meet or event happening with their team. That was that concern. And then the second concern is possibly looking into the future. Like I said, I have 2 high school students, I have a middle schooler, I have an elementary student, and I still have one at home. And I have a wide range of their academic abilities. And my sophomore, she has been categorized, I guess, as an advanced learner, but she hasn't met the qualifications to be a GATE student. Currently, she's taking 2 AP classes, and she's done really well between her freshman and sophomore year. But in middle school, she was limited to the rigor that she could take because she wasn't identified as a GATE student. And she was recommended multiple times, besides the regular second grade screening. She almost every year through 6th grade had a teacher recommendation for her to be tested again. And by 6th grade, she was tired, and she was tired of the rejection. She's like, clearly I'm not smart enough, Mom. And I thought that was horrible to hear because some students may not have that maybe genetic, marker that can give them that higher IQ on the particular test that you're taking. But some are driven and motivated and still in that 75, 85, 90, even 95% that don't meet the GATE qualifications. And I would like to see middle school classes be opened up to advanced learners so that there's not just a GATE qualification that allows them to have a competitive study. Anyway. And I would also maybe, I guess that ends.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So, Mr. President, Sarah, just for your knowledge, there's a lot of different ways that kids qualify for gifted and talented. And so the district has a method, the state has a method, but there are a lot of competencies which aren't always covered in the academic world. And so there's giftedness for artisticness or leadership. And so there are other ways that she might be gifted that she just doesn't check the box on that test. So just so you know.
Well, yeah, if I could comment on that. 'Cause it was
I'm
usually.
sorry, we can't engage in
Oh,
that
sorry.
conversation
Okay.
ongoing.
Mr. President, if a board member chooses to engage in discussion, it's allowable. The 3 minutes is limited to the comments, and then it's okay for the board to discuss. They just don't have to.
Okay. Go ahead then.
Yes, it was generally her math score that was the one that was limiting her ability to be in the GATE. But ELA, social science, she's always tested really well. So I understand there's a gamut, a range.
Thank you, Sarah. And also would like the board to know, and it's in your packet, and the public to know that we did receive one written comment from Christina Jordan, and it's in reference to diabetic CGM apps and student care. And everybody has a copy of it, and it'll be put into the record also. Next up, I have Kyle Freitas.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Freitas. I'm here on behalf of the Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy. It's out in Carlin, Nevada. We're a nationally accredited or nationally program partnered with the National Guard. We are not a recruiting tool, but the National Guard is our sponsor, our main donor. We get most of our funding through the federal agency. Our main focus is children from 16 to 18 who are credit deficient, in danger of dropping out or have already dropped out. It is a full tuition-free program. It is a resident program, so they're there for 5.5 months, and they live there for the whole 5.5 months. Everything is provided for them, everything from underwear to toiletries to uniforms, etc. It is a full accredited high school partnered with the Elko County School District. We have 4 teachers and 3 paraprofessionals that work with the credit recovery program. Also, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. We do have full-time staff there that is all civilian employees employed through the state of Nevada. The only requirements that they have there are they have to be Nevada residents and residents of the United States. They also have to be felony-free. They can be on probation, but not for a felony offense. They have to be drug-free while they attend the program the whole time. And after the program is done, after they graduate the 5.5 months, they're required for the next year to follow up with the caseworkers and mentors to make sure they're accomplishing the goals they set during the program. Like I said, they're open to any students 16 to 18 within the state of Nevada. They have to be a Nevada resident, they have to be a U.S. citizen, and not on a felony offense. We will be here afterwards to answer any questions, but thank you for the opportunity to speak today, or this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Freitas. Appreciate it. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment, and we'll move on to agenda item number 7, discussion on proposed changes to CCSD policy 219, English language program, and this is the first reading for discussion only, and Dr. Tanya Scott will be presenting.
Thank you. Good evening, Warner and members of the board. I'm just here to propose the changes to policy number 219, which you have read. I will just tell you the impetus for most of these changes were simply the vernacular or the vocabulary that's been used by NDE and other federal and Nevada documents, just to make it congruent at this time. Yes.
I have a question on page 2. At the very bottom, under the second bullet point under Carson City School District commitments to English learners. The second bullet point, we talk about being committed to actively recruiting teaching English as a second language, TESOL. And then the next page, we start talking about ELAD. And I know that ELAD is now the preferred endorsement, but I'm wondering if we don't include ELAD in that sentence there and say, or ELAD with the definition of English language acquisition and development.
A typographical error.
Okay.
And the license now reads ELAD, formerly TESOL. So I believe it was a typographical exclusion, for lack of a better term.
And I guess just on that note, they're moving away from English as a second language to a English language learner. And so we might want to just update that so that it's kind of timely and leads us in the future if we wanted to.
To update the use of ESL.
Yeah.
I believe that that's been removed from the policy.
Okay.
Because it doesn't really honor what students know. We're really honoring multilingual learners, and we're finding that a lot of our students, it's not their second language, it's their third or their fourth language.
I know, that's why I'm saying if you
Yeah.
read that, it says recruiting teachers of
English
as,
TESOL.
yeah.
And that's not congruent. I
Yeah.
think that was a typographical omission. I don't know if that's a thing, but it's a thing now.
Just probably they missed changing TESOL to ELAD there. One more thing on the third page, the second bullet point just needs a period at the end. The rest of them had periods.
We will note that.
Did you have other things you want to talk about this policy, or just open it up for further questions?
I'll open it up for further questions.
Okay, I just have some really minor things, I apologize. On the first page, under alignment, where you scratch out the second paragraph, where it starts at 2017, it looks like that should, still got a comma there instead of a period before, right after Carson City, Empower Carson City.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah,
We'll
it's just a
fix it.
minor thing.
Okay.
And then I think there's one other thing like that on, I don't know what page number it is, but it's second to the last page. There again on the first paragraph that starts CCSD school leadership. At the end of that sentence, it also looks like it should have a period instead of a comma, and that'd be in the third line down, right after "are celebrated."
I see that as well.
Any other questions or comments?
Those issues will be remedied.
Richard, I
Oh,
do have one.
Lupe, go ahead.
Under vision statement, it says CCSD English Language Development, and then in parentheses, it has ELAD. Do we need to include the definition for the A, which is acquisition, right? Do we need to include it in the English language and then acquisition development? Are you following me?
Why don't you repeat that again for her, please?
Okay, sure. So under vision statement, it says CCSD, English Language Development, and then in parentheses, it has ELAD. So my question is, do we need to include acquisition? Do we need to include the word acquisition?
I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing English language development, which was the intended use of the term.
English Language Development? So what's the A stand for?
Yeah, that's what she's asking.
The distinction between that, English language development is what we're going to call, as Trustee Walker mentioned before, we used to formerly call it ESL, English as a Second Language. We're moving towards terming our pedagogy as English language development. English ELAD, ELAD stands for English Language Acquisition and Development, which is what the endorsement is termed as.
So I'm wondering, do we not want the acronym following English language development, just get rid of the acronym for ELAD?
Or just make it ELD.
Thank you. That's what I was confused. So thank you, Laura. That's exactly what I was asking. Because to me, when I read it, it says English Language Development, and so I'm thinking in parentheses, that's the acronym for that.
Do you see where she's talking about?
Yes, but I still, maybe I'm misunderstanding, I still see a distinction between ELD and ELAD.
So under vision statement, and I apologize, I didn't fully understand what it stood for, but we have English language development and then a parentheses ELAD.
That's not, oh, I'm not seeing that on my copy.
Oh, yeah, under vision statement here. That's where the disconnect is.
Okay. So then,
So on your
then it is
copy-
an error. Then it's an error.
Okay.
I'm not seeing it on my,
So if we're saying English language development, then in
Yes.
parentheses, we would just put ELD.
my apologies, that's not what I'm seeing on my
Okay.
copy. I understand now.
Any other discussion or questions on the proposed changes to this policy 219?
Just a reminder, or just a recommendation, I guess, that when you do talk about the ELAD endorsement, to spell out what ELAD stands for in the first time you do it.
Yes, I see that now. Okay.
Seeing no further questions, thank you. And we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 8, which is the discussion on the proposed changes to CCSD Regulation 219 English Learner Program. And this is for discussion only. And Dr. Scott, please proceed.
Again, the impetus here was just to align our vernacular or vocabulary with NDE. It's a goal of mine to align our EL handbook and our policies and regulations with the terminology that's been used to report out at the state level so that that's all congruent with how we collect data and then report it out.
Any comments or questions? Mike?
Tanya, just two quick things. So on the bottom of page 2, it looks like they left ESL, so probably you want to change that to EL. So in the heading and also in the top, so hiring of ESL certified staff and then any ESL teacher. So we probably just want to update that. And then I had a question on the very last page, number 5. I think we need a who in there. So administrators or employees who evaluate teachers of ELAD and ALAC core content classes fails to complete the training. I think we need to say classes who fails to complete the training requirements set forth in regulation, blah, blah, blah. So I think we just need the word who.
We will add that.
Any other comments from the board? Dr. Scott, I do have something. On page number 3, you go down to paragraph number 5. It looks like then you have a 4 right beside it, and 6, and then you have a 5 there, and a 7, and then you have a 6 there. So is that what it's just renumbering it?
It's just a renumbering.
Okay, so everything should be just moved down 1 then, okay. That was the only question I had.
Bridget,
Go ahead,
Bridget, on page 4.
go ahead, Lupe.
So on page 4, on the section under regulation, number 219, so similar typos. Letter G, it has a C right next to it. So is that just an alignment issue? If you look at D,
Just one crossed out.
Yeah, Lupe, that's just relettering because they deleted the C before it, so the next one that was D becomes C.
Oh, okay, sure. Thank
The
you.
strike through doesn't go all the way to the C, but the whole sentence is gone. So it's just relettering those bullet points.
Relettering, got it.
The same issue I had, Lupe, I didn't see the strike through. Any other questions on this? Go ahead.
On page 3, it says the district will provide training for September 1st of each year to its administrators each school. So does that training change every year, or do they get the same training every year, even though they've been here 10 years?
I will say that per Nevada NDE, the policy is always changing, so there have been updates. So there was an assembly bill, for example, this year, AB 195, that changed how we report out data, including how we inform parents of their rights. So there are changes every year that make it requisite for us to have those meetings and to share that information with administrators and EL designees, in my view. And also we're required to, when we report out when we had those meetings and what we shared.
Just nice to know it's relevant.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 9, report on the English language access scores for the Carson City School District 2021-2022 school year for discussion only. And again, Dr. Scott will be presenting. Thank you.
I'm going to say, I feel like I was just here reporting on the access data from last year, so this seems a little premature. So I will say that a lot of this is preliminary data that has not been necessarily validated, or I don't have the metrics that have been aggregated by the NDE. But as always, I'm so happy to share great things that are happening for English learners in our school district. So I'm going to present to you the WIDA access data that we have so far from 21-22. Just an overview. I'm going to just provide a brief overview of our program and then some data highlights. And then I'm going to tell you, spoiler alert, the coolest thing that we are going to do with this data. Just a reminder, English learners are defined as students for whom another language than English is spoken in the home as indicated by a parent, and the student has demonstrated that he or she is not yet proficient in English as defined by the Department of Justice. So this far, we have approximately 900 English learners enrolled. That number changes daily. Approximately 1,500 students have exited the program, which together accounts for about 30% of our population. So about 30% of students in the Carson City School District have or are participating in the English Learner Program.
So sorry, from the start of this year, Tanya, 600 students already have exited the program? Is that how I read that?
No. We generally live about between 900 and 1,000, and then we track students who have exited for 1 to 4 years. So that 1,500 are students that have exited in the over the 1 to 4 years, and after the 4 years, they're considered fully exited.
Gotcha.
So we continue to monitor them.
Okay.
That they're not considered to be in program.
Yeah, gotcha.
So they no longer take the access test.
Okay, perfect.
We're seeing a lot of language diversity, so we are a multilingual and multicultural community. So these are the languages that we have represented presently as of today in our school district. So per ESSA and the NAC, an English language proficiency exam, which we call an ELPA, must be administered from kindergarten through 12th every year for students who are English learners. Presently, that test is the WIDA Access 2.0 test, and that is the data that I'm going to be reporting on. So it's administered once yearly. Last year, in the 2001-2020 year, 245 students tested. It measures language in all 4 domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. I think it's important to note that all 4 of those domains are not measured equally. So it's not a 25, 25, 25, 25. Reading and writing is measured more heavily because that is where academic language lives, and the research shows that that's what makes students competitive with their monolingual speaking peers. And this is what generates the data that indicates if the goals of our program, which are very much tied to the policy and reg that you read, are being met. And this is the most simplified version of what those goals are. We want proficiency and progress towards proficiency. I've reframed my thinking of this lately. I used to think of it as growth, like we just want everybody to grow, but we want them to grow and make the benchmark so that they're deemed proficient. So just some highlights. 10% of the students, based on the data so far, exited the program. 75% of them achieved the requisite composite growth criteria as defined by Carson City School District leadership, which was 0.5. And I just thought it was important to note that 14% of these students exceeded that growth criteria. So they made more than a year's growth or more, which is significant to me. And then my little side post-it there is very important because approximately 73% of the exited students were in grade 4 and 5. And I'll tell you why that's important. Although this is preliminary data and we don't have what we call student growth percentile or adequate growth percentile, the most diluted version of that is that for students to really be proficient, they have to exit within 4 or 5 years. So the exit criteria is 4.5. So for example, if you enter as a kindergartner, you're expected to exit in 4.5 years. So this is why this is so significant to me, because this is truly what we want to see. We want to see students entering the schools, who most of our students are what we call short-term English learners, about over 600, that they've been in for 5 or less years, that we would hope that they would exit within that time. And to me, this data speaks to the fact that that is happening for students. I want to say something about the unsung heroes in this, because I was asked to share about access data, and as Mr. Casiopo mentioned the monitored students, they no longer take the access test, and we do monitor them, but I think of it more of a compliance and maybe almost a deficit model where we're looking if they're not achieving. But having had to look at the data recently for an NDE report, they are rock stars. So of our students that took the SBAC, the Smarter Balance test, in grades 3rd through 8, that had exited in the past, like 1st through 4th years, this are in the 1st or 4th year of exit, 20% of them were proficient, which means they had a 3 or 4 in ELA and math, which is a feat in general. So I just feel like I had a slide, I put it in, I took it out. I just feel like that I feel like exited but not forgotten, that they're continuing to do great things, and that is really the goal, that you would exit the program and then, like I said, be competitive with your monolingual speaking peers. So I know that a lens that has been a topic of conversation has been the last 5 years, given the context of schooling and COVID. So I just wanted to show that, yes, we did have a bit of a dip, and now we're back on the incline. But if you look at our 5-year trend, the exit rate is approximately 14%. And generally in the day when we had what was called AMAO, average measurable achievement outcomes, which is kind of like when we had AYP for English learners, an ideal, like the benchmark was 14%, 14.4. So if you think about that as a whole, we're really moving in the right direction, and I feel solid that we're really going in the right place. And those were rounded numbers too. So, and then also another real positive thing is that when we look at, I hope this makes sense, of students who did not achieve the requisite composite growth, which was that 0.5, decreased by almost half from the prior year. So students that did not make that 0.5 growth, which is what we've determined as the criteria as needing what we call an ILIP, an Individual Language Education Plan, in 2020 to 2021 was 467, and this year we have 240 students that meet that criteria. So that number has almost been reduced by half in the last year. So again, looking at that lens of the context of maybe some interrupted schooling, it really looks like we're moving in a positive direction. So now is the point where I'm going to tell you, and I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to let Mr. Neil Ford tell you, who's actually not an educator, so stick with me on this, what the coolest thing is to do with data, and we are going to do this for our students.
Try this strange 10-second technique tonight to reverse type 2 diabetes. Most people...
When I was a young father, my wife and I took our 2 young kids to Disney World. And I didn't have a really single jot of interest in anything there, but the kids were jacked to go, so I knuckled under and off we went. And I can't say I entered the park with the best attitude, though, even though the Disney cast members were very professional. I mean, they're like a well-rehearsed band. But the one talent that stood out to me was how...
Click on your video. Thank you.
When I was a young father, my wife and I took our 2 young kids to Disney World. And I didn't have a really single jot of interest in anything there, but the kids were jacked to go, so I knuckled under and off we went. And I can't say I entered the park with the best attitude, though, even though the Disney cast members were very professional. I mean, they're like a well-rehearsed band. But the one talent that stood out to me was how finely tuned their radar was to the needs of every individual guest. There were lots of little examples, but the one that really stood out to me was the first. I was sort of a stress monkey when we all walked in. I was a little annoyed at the parking, a little spooked about losing a kid. I was grinding my teeth a little about how much it all cost. And after I'd handed out the tickets one by one to the family, as they went through the turnstile, I was really honked off when it locked up on me and I couldn't get through. So I turned with this angry expression to the ticket guy, who hasn't triggered it. And he says to me, very gently, "I'm not letting you in until I see you smile." And he said it very nicely, but I was in no mood, so I gave him, this smile like that. And he didn't take offense. He leans in close so nobody else hears, and he says, "They're all going to have a great time, trust me. But they'll have a much better time if they know you're having fun." And something about his delivery and logic really diffused the bomb. I mean, he had my number. He was so right. So suddenly I smiled without having to force it, and he let me through. And I took about 5 steps, and I turned around, and he was still watching me. Somehow he knew I was going to turn around to thank him, which I did. And he gave me a big thumbs up. And I had a great day the whole rest of the day, mostly because of that solid citizen. And I've thought about that moment a lot while working on digital marketing solutions. Our digital world collects shipping containers full of information about us. And most of us have the sneaking suspicion that it's not necessarily for our benefit. But how cool would it be if it was? I mean, if the data was used not to manipulate us, but to have empathy for us and show understanding for our concerns and our hopes for the people we love, and help us do those things. I've seen it done.
Wish I could, but
Melt fat 728% faster while you sleep at night.
the last time I was here, data is a tool, and it's one of the strongest tools we have for meeting the needs of our students. And we often think of it like that, like we're going to meet their needs. But this resonated with me when I saw it, because our first use of it should make people smile. And when I think about making people smile, I feel like this data is good and it's going to make lots of people smile. Like when I submit that report to the NDE on Friday, hopefully they'll be smiling. I know there was a lot of EL designees who were smiling when they, thumbs up, when they got their data, administrators. But when I think about using data to smile, I think about what Mr. Ford said, what if we really use this data in the way Disney did to meet the needs of each individual guest? And what if we used it to show that we have concerns for our hopes for those students, for people, and making them smile? And when I think about making people smile, like I said, I think this data is good. I think it's going to make lots of people smile. But these are the people I think of. I think of these people, and these are our students. And students who are celebrating the fact that they've reached those goals, that they've reached proficiency. And this fine person who was a student in Mrs. Werner's class, who came in to me as a pre-K student smiling and exited this year smiling. So this is who I'm hoping that this data will make smile, because this is the data that we use as a tool to meet students, as Mr. Ford said, and meet the needs, essentially like Disneyland, of each individual guest, and really have an understanding of our concerns and our hopes for them. And our hopes for them is to be successful within our school system. So here are some smile-worthy applications of how we're going to use this data. We will continue to give individual language education plans for those students. And I go back to Mr. Ford, how he said really those individual. So students who aren't making that 0.5 requisite growth will receive an ILEP, we call them, an individual language education plan in the domains, speaking, listening, reading, or writing, where they weren't making those growths, that are monitored by their classroom teachers and their EL designees. When looking at the data, one of our concerns is going back to that 73% of the students that exited were at 4th or 5th grade, which is what we would hope for our students. We do see that we have a fair number of what the research calls long-term English learners who are not exiting after that 5 years. And this is not a concern that's specific to the Carson City School District. It's in the research, it's just kind of a general concern. So this year we have, with thanks to the grants department, implemented Avid Excel. So we are an Avid school district, and Excel is a program that's specific to English learners at the middle school level who are classified as long-term English learners and designed to meet their needs. And we've committed to a 3-year implementation. We have a team, we have classes at both middle schools that are addressing the needs, and we're going to look at really targeting that population based on our data. We've also have targeted professional learning opportunities. That was kind of the impetus too for revising our reg and our policy. In the past, we've really focused on sheltered instruction, which is a valuable practice, but pedagogical practices change, and we are moving towards reframing our training for new hires and for teachers that is more focused on the ELD standards, the English Language Development Standards of the NDE. We've partnered with West Ed and NDE and Truckee Meadows College to provide that kind of training. So just moving towards that, we also continue to give the ELAD endorsement courses that meet what the NDE is looking for the requirements for that criteria. We continue to have our EL advisory team. Trustee Ramirez serves on that team. We're also always recruiting other stakeholders. It's a cross-section of stakeholders who provide input regarding the data and how we might move forward to celebrate and honor and build on what students already bring to the table with linguistic assets. And then also, I'm not sure if this is directly tied to the data, but we are looking at enrichment. So the research bears out that it's not always about remediation or always recouping what we've lost, but inspiring people. So last year we were so lucky to have Wild Horse Children's Theater come in and do a program at Empire Elementary, and we also had an art camp that was culminated in a community art show that was attended by over 150 people at Mark Twain, and we are continuing those efforts this year. Wild Horse will be coming to Fremont Elementary, and then we're looking at combining Fritch and Bordewick to participate in the art camp. So just looking at really our students again and inspiring them and meeting them where they're at and moving them forward and really looking at them and their individual needs to really bring them to where they want to be. I'll never forget the first administrator that hired me here in Carson City was Jan Sullivan, who many of you might know, and she said this great thing. She always said it. She used to say there's nothing more educationally insulting to give somebody work they can do or to give work they can't do. And that is why that data, especially for English learners, is such that WIDA Access data is such a powerful tool because it shows us where they're at and how we can give them things they can do and also to help them to do things they can't do. So having said that, and this is one of my favorite smiles from our art camp at Mark Twain, are there any smiles, comments, or questions to share about the access data?
Any comments from the board or questions?
I do have a comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lupe.
Dr. Scott, this may be a good opportunity to promote that we are seeking for parent involvement. Any parents that are interested in volunteering, this is a wonderful way to get involved. And by the way, I also want to thank the superintendent for streamlining this agenda item in Spanish. So we do have Spanish speaker parents or audience listening to this. So again, this may be a good time for us to announce that we are seeking for parent engagement. And I just want to say thank you for your passion. Thank you for your leadership in this program or with this program. It definitely takes a village to help our English learners excel. And we know that if we give them the right tools, they're going to be very successful. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Ramirez. I will say I stand on the shoulders of giants like Dr. Austin and Chris Budson and Laurel Terry, who had this position before me.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, and as you just said, the folks before you, you guys have done really fantastic work, and I'm sure we all do. We really appreciate your leadership and what you're doing. And while, like I always say, we have work to do and growth to be made, you know, we're moving in the right direction. We're already seeing a positive increase soon after what we've gone through. So thanks for what you're doing, and congratulate all those kids for us.
Thank you to the administrators and the classroom teachers and the EL designees. I always say, like, whatever's happening is not for lack of, or isn't happening, is certainly not for lack of trying on anyone's part on behalf of those smiling faces.
Any other questions, comments?
The EL Advisory Council, are there positions on that for parents? If any parents who are listening that might want to volunteer, is that an area where they could?
Last year, we sent a parent square to all in-program and exited program parents, which was about 2,000 people, actually. So we really are looking at for a cross-section of stakeholders. Our focus last year was really how to capitalize on students' linguistic funds. So we're really doing a lot of great things in the school district. We have heritage language classes, Spanish for Spanish speakers at both the middle schools and the high school. We're also looking at how to increase the number of students that take the test to get the biliteracy seal on their diploma. So really we engaged in some kind of short-term, midterm, and long-term goal setting, and it's my plan to kind of move forward with that so that we can really look at honoring multilingual students and the assets they bring as learners to the school setting.
Any other comments? I do have one, or a couple, really. Again, just thank you for the work you're doing. And also, I'd like to take and thank the EL teachers. I know they work very hard. And I want to thank the teachers, the EL teachers who showed up here tonight, take time out of your schedule and your sleep time, I know, for showing up and attending the meeting and supporting Dr. Scott. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
By the way, good presentation. We'll move on to agenda item number 10, discussion and possible action on selecting the topic for the 2022-2023 Carson City School District Board of Trustees sponsored American Citizen Essay Contest. And this is for possible action, and Superintendent Fueling will be presenting.
Sorry, I want to take down this PowerPoint because I know you'll be looking at that really happy kiddo from Mark Twain while I'm trying to present. Thank you, trustees. Tonight, presenting to you information on the American Citizen Essay Contest. As many of you know, this has been a long-standing tradition in the Carson City School District. Soon after the events of September 11th, 2001, the trustees decided to honor the memory and events of 9/11 through this contest. Funds have been set aside for this. I'll note that we do this as elementary, middle, and high school age levels. All are different categories of competition. And this year, actually, we are planning on increasing the award amount for each category. The last time we increased the amounts, and Renee, if I'm wrong, don't correct me. I think it was 2008. It was quite a while ago, I know. So those amounts have been in place for quite a while. So we thought it time to consider increasing those, and that is in the that is on the last page of the little packet of information you have with this agenda item. This contest is open to all students that attend school in Carson City. And you have in front of you the list of all of the past topics. And as you may remember, generally the board will decide on the topic for the essay. On the second last page, we have included some past topic ideas that didn't necessarily get chosen. So those are just being listed as ideas for you to consider. If you look at number 9, if you've seen the movie Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, this very much reminds me of that kind of idea of bringing someone from the past to the present and what would they think about that. So I thought that was cute. So anyway, so the topic is up for your discussion and decision. But
Thank you. I'll go ahead and open up the conversation with the board. Laurel?
I have one I'd like to throw out there. Patriot Day, the holiday in remembrance of September 11th, 2001, is a national day of service. Why is service important for citizens?
Any other comments or suggestions? Lupe, you have anything?
I also like number 5, this land is your land, what it means to me. I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, thank you. Joe?
I like Laurel's. I tend to like them all. I think we can't go wrong. I mean, just anytime we get to think about our country and where we live and, looking back, looking forward, it's all good. But out of the list of the 9, I kind of liked America the Beautiful, what it means to me, only from the standpoint of it's a challenging time right now and a little beauty wouldn't be so bad.
Trustee Casiopo, and actually President Varner, one thing I failed to mention, one of the comments, we talked about this a little bit internally at a principals meeting, and one of the comments that came out of that in talking about the topics is just trying to be cognizant of the fact that we have elementary, middle, and high school. And some of the feedback was that some of the topics in the past may have been a little difficult for elementary age students. The other thing I just wanted to mention as an aside, one of the ideas that came up in talking about this as well was kind of over time things change, and I think somewhat as an idea in the spirit of the grants that the Dolan Auto Group they've now offered, where there's a video that is a part of this. The idea of it potentially being like a video submission, and maybe it's not necessarily for this time around, but just there were some ideas of maybe how in the future this may change over time. So just for your consideration.
Trustee Walker, go ahead.
So I also like number 4, but I was thinking that I would probably say, what makes America beautiful? So why does that work? And I really liked Laurel's topic as well. So I think either one of those would be great. Laurel, just maybe reworking yours is like, why is it important and how do you serve your community or something along those lines?
Oh, yeah, that would be, I just put it, why is service important for citizens and how do you serve, I don't know, I've been doing a lot of efforts with youth that I work with on promoting service for the National Day of Service, and it just occurred to me that is what the holiday is, and a lot of times the kids may not be aware of that.
And I wonder on that item too, sorry. How do you serve your community? When I think about elementary, maybe how could you serve your community? Just to open it up for folks that maybe haven't gotten there yet.
You might be surprised. We have some kids who do amazing things in elementary school.
Stacy, did you have something? I'm glad you brought it up because that was a concern I had of choosing a topic that's too in-depth, for lack of a better term, for elementary school kids. And I didn't know if we wanted to choose two different topics maybe.
Well, and one thing I would offer as well, if it may be easier to decide on one, but if maybe you would allow us a little bit of flexibility with how the question is worded, that it's in the exactly in the spirit of the intent, but just maybe a little bit of modification to
Yeah,
the
I think that
wording.
would work. Yeah.
And I like that idea a lot, because I kind of enjoy hearing the perspectives from elementary up to high school. I mean, I'm impressed by all of them, but I'm really impressed with these elementary kids sometimes. And I mean, what they come up with, there is no way I would have come up with that at their age.
So I do like Laurel's, how she's tied into the 9/11, because when we put this together, I was actually on the board, and we were all reeling from that event and the kids. And I think now, with all the time that's passed, there's not even a kid in school when this happened. So it might be pulling it back into people remembering what exactly happened on 9/11 and why it's so important that we remember that and why service is important. But
The kids who were born in 2001 graduated in 2020 or 2019.
that's what I'm saying. I think that it's better to keep it surrounding that topic, the 9/11, so that because those people aren't around anymore, that maybe it'll keep them focused on why we still want to remember what happened and why, and how to honor those people that lost their lives or were impacted by those events of that day.
Okay, so far we've had Laurel's submission, and then the American flag, what it means to me, and then America the Beautiful. So if we want to decide on one, if we go with Laurel's, maybe the superintendent or his staff can tweak it for the younger kids.
Rich, I think Lupe said this land is your land. I don't think she said the flag.
Okay,
Yeah, right.
I think I had that, that was my selection that I was going to mention.
President Werner, I also liked Trustee Laurel's. So I'm in support of hers as well. As long as we are able to make it appropriate for all ages, I think, for all levels, so that they can elaborate on the topic.
Laurel, do you mind reading that again?
What I had was Patriot Day, the holiday in remembrance of September 11th, 2001, is a national day of service. Why is service important for citizenship? And then you could include, if we wanted to, how do you or could you serve in your community?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
I'll move that we use Laurel's topic for this year's, gosh, what is it called? American Citizen Essay Contest. Apologize.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Mike, second by Joe.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just for clarification, does the motion include discretion for staff to adjust the wording as appropriate?
It does.
Also, just for clarification, are we also including in that motion to increase the award amounts? Or do we need to move to do that? Or do we just, we don't need to? If we don't need to, then we don't need to.
I think that's up to AJ and Spencer. We'll get the topic, they'll get the money.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any board discussion, reference motion? Seeing none, any public comment in reference to this motion? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. All opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Fueling. Now we'll move on to agenda item number 11, informational update on student enrollment in the Carson City School District for 2022-2023 to include the potential budgetary impact for fiscal year 2023 for discussion only, and Mr. Spencer Winward. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, President, members of the board. I've been looking forward to this all night, but I did want something from Dr. Scott. I'm going to smile, but I'm not going to go any further until you all smile. So, Mr. Russell, you're excluded. Oh, he's in. So, all righty. I appreciate the opportunity to present this information to you. Just wanted to kind of update you to where we're sitting at with our enrollment, kind of take a look back at last year at this time and where it kind of sits in comparison to how we budgeted for this year. Basically just kind of look at it from one grade level to the next, and then how it looks from school to school, and then just compare it to our budget to actual. So I believe lots of pretty colors was one of the requirements for my presentation. I hope this suffices. So if you'll see there's two columns here, the fourth and fifth column, just kind of show the changes from one grade to the next. For example, first grade, 2022, last school year, we had 514. Those students now would be in second grade, so that blue color kind of flows down to 510 this year. So our first graders last year were 4 less than what we had. Our first graders this year, who are now in second grade, are 4 less than what we had last year. So this column right here, step grade change, just kind of shows the difference from what happened. You know, our first graders graduated to second, our 10th graders graduated to 11th, so on and so forth. The difference there. Then highlighted in yellow just be the difference between our graduating senior class to the incoming kindergarten class, 75 student difference there, a negative. And then the very far column is just grade to grade comparison. First grade last year compared to first grade this year. So you can see at this point we are 68 students down from where we were second week of September last year. And again, these numbers are fluid. They're looking at them every day this week. They've changed every single day. I think we're going to start to see them stabilize a little bit as the school year rolls on, but we're pretty close to where we thought we would be. Next chart here just shows each school and the difference from where they were last year this time to September of this year. You can see not a lot of change. The biggest change there would be Carson Middle School. It seems like we have quite a few students, and forgive me for being new here. I don't know if there was some redistricting that kind of affected that. And then Empire, we've seen, I think the last couple of years, a few different, a couple of drops in the enrollment there. And then final slide here, this just shows our enrollment in our May final budget. And again, just to back up a slide, we have 7,301 students. That is not weighted. So when we weight our pre-K students at 0.6 per student for budget reasons, that drops to 7,269.4 students. Compared to what we budgeted for, we're 17 students lower than what we'd budgeted back in May. Multiply that by the per student pupil PCFP amount, we're down about $130,000. Nothing to lose sleep over at this point. Like I say, fluctuations could very well take care of that as we go throughout the year. Other differences that could take care of that is just a tenured teacher retiring, being replaced with a younger teacher. A couple of those takes care of that amount. So not an amount that I'm concerned about at this point in the year. Any questions, comments, or smiles, I suppose?
Just one question on I think it was your first slide, the transition from, I think it was 8th grade to 9th grade. We were up 20 students where everything else was pretty much, where everything was negative. Well, one other was positive, but can we attribute that to anything? People just like 9th grade?
Oh, geez, sorry.
Well,
historically,
that's a negative. I just wondered how it went out.
There is generally growth from 5th grade. Am I looking at this right? 5th grade to 6th grade and 8th grade to 9th grade, and that is usually kids from private schools or homeschooling that will then enter once middle school comes or once high school comes. They will roll up. So we generally see increases in those grade levels, but it's not really an anomaly, but it's just a consistent difference that we see historically.
Any other comments or questions? I only have one. I guess I'm a little surprised that the numbers between Carson Middle School and Eagle Valley didn't level out more.
Spencer, you want me to take that? I know you're new here.
Your mic's on, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I would say I was surprised by those numbers. So we were projecting Carson Middle School actually to start the year was a little bit over 900. And it's shaded down. I think we projected them to be around 885 this year. So they're pretty close to projection. And we expected that because this was the last group of that due to the Fremont rezoning, which middle school they go to. Now they go to Eagle Valley. We've expected those declines to happen. I think what certainly surprised us, Eagle Valley, I think we had projected at around 830 or 840. And that number has come in quite a bit lower. And I mean, attributing that, as Spencer mentioned, Empire Elementary over the last number of years has seen quite a drop in their overall enrollment. I think when I got here 8 years ago, they were right around 600 that year, maybe just under 600. So it's come down quite a ways. And Fremont and Sealiger are both down a bit, those being other feeder schools into Eagle Valley. But their populations, well, especially like Sealiger used to have 610, 620 kids, and their class sizes are down over the years as well. So I think it's just kind of a long-term effect as these smaller classes have been feeding in.
Stacy?
So there is like 100 students, almost 150 if you look at Borderwick, Bray, and Empire. Is there something we can do to equal that out? I mean, is that something that we might have to look down the road because there is dwindling so many and we have other schools that are rising?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, some of this I think is from just varying complicated economic impacts within the community. And I think even though our community is not huge, still you have different areas that are kind of impacted differently. And just some of the trends we talked about in May, just with the aging of the population and overall just fewer kids, it seems. So I would say, I don't know that I don't believe it's something that we have to do for next year, but it certainly is something that you could look at rezoning to try to balance some of that out. And clearly, we actually are, Mr. Wimmer and I have been emailing with the company that 5 years ago did projections for enrollment. And that was clearly a different time pre-COVID, and we thought kind of the growth was going to bring a lot of kids. Well, they can now take a look at this data and start kind of projecting out based on the number of homes that have been built, how many students are we getting from those homes? Based on the number of apartments being built, how many students are we getting from those homes? So they can look at, they actually work with the city to get all the information on projects and try to project that forward for us. So that's something that we're actively working on, and I think it'll give us a better idea of in the long run if it would serve us to do something like that.
And I think that's probably true because by then that development on that other side of the ranch or Lampa Ranch, which should be started, and that's more multi-family units that they're looking at, I think. So that might be something to look at.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Lupe, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I don't.
No bar graph. If I may add one more comment here. Ms. Fuson just reminded me that the kindergarten start date was adjusted this year, and we estimate that we lost about 20 students from that that we normally would see in these numbers. So given that, you know, that would take our numbers down to about 48, 50 students lower than where we're at.
Yeah, I just have one more comment about Carson Middle School and Eagle Valley. So with the rezoning we did, Eagle Valley Middle School still came in with one student less than they had in 2021.
I think to Mr. Winward's point, you know, this this still will fluctuate a bit, but yeah, and really, you know, what you see with Carson Middle School seems to make sense in terms of
Where'd they go?
a grade level at a school in our district. I mean, it used to be about 100 kids. Now it averages more 80 to 85. But that's where that leaving 96 or moving 96 seems to make sense. It's the Eagle Valley side, and I think, again, I think part of it is just while more kids did move to Eagle Valley, the other schools that are feeding into Eagle Valley have gotten smaller, and so there's just an offset. They kind of wash out in the end. So.
Mike, go ahead.
I seem to remember talking with several families that they had that choice during this transition. So if their child started in a school, we allowed them to finish at that school. And so we won't really know the impact until the next generation starts feeding in, basically. Because, I mean, a lot of kids don't want to change schools. If they're going into 8th grade, they want to stay with their 8th grade friends.
Sure. Thank you. I'm smiling. Any other comments or questions? If not, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item number 12, approval of the consent agenda. This is for possible action.
Got it? I lost it. Where'd it go? There it is. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second, Wilkie.
Motion by Joe, second by Stacy. Any board comment about the motion? Seeing none, any public comment reference this motion? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item number 13, informational items for discussion only. I think everybody has read those by now and is familiar with those informational items. Any questions? We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 14, request for future agenda topics. Mike?
I think with the transportation issues, I think Sarah Romeo brought up something that we didn't think about, because we haven't really had to worry about the parents bringing kids to events. And so I think that we probably want to review that policy and look at the legal ramifications of any changes.
If I can, a question. She also brought up the gate. It might be good information to just maybe an update on the gate program. And there we used to have gate clusters. And I remember my son was in a position, it sounds like her child's in, where he never quite ever qualified for it, but he could hang with those kids. And he wound up getting into some kind of cluster group, and that was a long time ago. But just maybe an update on how these things work and what we can and can't do.
Thank you. Any other? Lupe, you have any?
No, not at this moment.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other suggestions for or requests for future agenda topics, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Time is 8:28 p.m. Thank you, and I appreciate everybody showing up tonight and spending your time here. Thank you.